Hello and welcome to Movers and Shakers. I'm Ken Miller. Today I'm joined by Lansing's Public Works Director Mike Spickelmier. Mike, Lansing's continuing work on its 2021 Mill and Overlay project list. Talk about some of the locations, and we're going to show a map here shortly, and what this work looks like. I know we kind of got started, we kind of paused, and we're getting started again here early to mid-September. But go ahead and give us a rundown on some of the locations.
Sure. We started up our mill and overlay as we do in the summer, and we started on McIntyre Road down in the southern part of the city, and that turned out fairly well. And just through scheduling conflicts with the contractor and a pretty large volume of work going on in the region, we've been forced to kind of wait until about now to resume our mill and overlay schedule. So just to kind of give a quick update, the contractor does a mill on the roadways, and that varies.
It's like the grinding of the existing pavement.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll take off the top surface layer to both increase adhesion for the second layer, and as well as remove some of the oxidized pavement that's been exposed to the weather for 10 to 20 years, depending on when it was last installed. So that'll happen, and then they'll come back usually the week after, and then put down the new asphalt wear surface that is going to, again, hopefully last another 10 to 20 years. The areas it's going to be working in is just north of City Hall here, First Street, First Terrace, and Nina is got a lot of work going on. And then also on the northeast part of town, the old Richardson area, the 8th Street, it was partially done a few years back, and now we're finishing that up. We're also going to be doing a lot of work in what we know is the Stonecrest area, and that is just north of 4H off of Valley. So Valley Drive, Maple Lane, Sage, Bittersweet, Olive, also Pine Ridge Court, and then there's a end of Hickory Trail that we kind of deferred maintenance on. We had to do some reconstruction, and then we're going to kind of seal that up. And we also have one small cul-de-sac dead end street off of Pebble Beach north of Holiday Drive, and that's again, these are all projects that we've been in various states of looking at, and we're just taking the opportunity to get them all wrapped up now.
Okay, and going back to, we've set a schedule, but obviously weather plays into that potentially, and it seems like supply, potentially labor supply, could play into this too. That's more on the contractor's end, obviously, but we have the best of intentions when we give a schedule, but obviously there's some potential impacts from things we can't control.
Sure, and weather, of course, when you're doing any construction outside, is probably the most unforeseen delay that we ever encounter in a project, especially one of this nature. So yeah, the contractor gives the schedule the best they can forecast, and we share that information with the public and what we know. Just for those in the mill and overlay that are affected directly, the contractor has a door hanger policy that they are required to give at least 24 hours notice. We ask for a little more, but again, it's a lot of times one project for the contractor will be shut down for another reason, and they will quickly mobilize in and take care of some work, which kind of is how McIntyre happened. And as you can see, they milled it in one day, and then they came back and overlaid it in one day, and that was a pretty good stretch for a little over a mile of road for one day.
Well, they had a lot of equipment out there when they did that project too.
They did. They actually had 2 laydown machines for a brief amount of time working both ends. So the contractor gets means and methods, so whatever they want to do, as long as they meet our specification, we kind of give them a little bit of leeway, and that hopefully translates to more efficiency on their part and better cost for us. So.
Okay. All right, so the Lansing City Council in early September approved the 2022 city budget. What are some of the highlights? Because this is something you've been working on for months now when you're putting together the public works budget and the projects, but what can we expect to see in terms of projects in 22?
So in 2022, there's some CIP that is locally funded, and then of course we've got some of the bigger projects. Locally, we still have a robust mill and overlay pavement preservation program, so you will continue to see us out there fixing curbs and overlaying streets and doing the general preventive maintenance work that we do. Supplemental to that, we have a drainage project on Valley Drive that we're going to try to accelerate and get into the 2022 season if possible. And then also, as everyone knows, the big capital improvement project for 2022 will be the K-7 and Eisenhower
Right, we're going to get into that. Right,
Yep.
right. So, and not just you and me, but many residents are very aware of that preliminary utility movement work that's been going on at the intersection there, K-7 and Eisenhower. So, and I know this is going to be broken into, I guess, technically 2 seasons. You've got the utility movement now, but obviously a lot of this work's also, I believe, going to be done in 2022. Talk about when we might see that intersection back to normal, I guess, for the winter break, potentially, and then what we're going to see when they're doing construction and they're rebuilding that intersection.
Sure. So you're exactly right. We've got 2 phases happening concurrently right now. One is property acquisition for the acquisition of right-of-way and easements so that we'll have the room to put in the infrastructure. And the second is the utility relocation, where utilities that are in the way now for the construction of the lanes are having to move out of the way. We've had a very successful move with Evergy. We want to thank them. They're a great partner.
And they're done, right? They're done with their move?
They are done, but if you've been out there, you may have noticed they actually went underground with their east-west circuit. That not only did it aesthetically clean up the intersection, but it also gave us a lot more room to do some stuff. Kansas Gas is currently out there now, and they're finishing up. We still have Spectrum Charter that is still on the poles, but because they're on the poles, their movement and their impacts may be less. They haven't completed their relocation yet. So that should be wrapping up in the next week or 2. They were really hoping to be done sooner, but there's been 2 rain events this week that I think, potentially impacted them. And anytime you've dug a hole in the ground and it rains, it fills with water, and that just makes the job that much more difficult and longer. So that's that first part. The second part will be, and it'll actually be a multi-phase part, the actual construction and improvements of the intersection. Now that we have almost completed utility relocation and property acquisition, we are getting ready to actually bid the work. And the reason we're bidding the work in the fall is so that we can give the contractor an opportunity to build a plan and a schedule that will be cost effective and most efficient so that we can try to get these improvements in as quickly as possible. We did some things earlier. We pre-ordered a lot of the equipment that's going to be needed out there so that when the contractor is awarded the projects, the intention is to have the poles that are going to be going over the road already in-house so that they don't have to order that and wait on that lead time. We're going to give them enough time to order any of the electronics and the new signals that need to be put up. And this will give them that opportunity to build a schedule that's going to be very, hopefully, effective in minimizing impact. So, but when that happens, we are going to see some impacts. Everyone should expect that this is going to be under construction for a fair amount of time, and we will do what we can to forecast those impacts. And unlike utility relocation that takes a week or 2 weeks, or in Evergy's case a month, but they were very careful not to impact it more than they absolutely had to. There'll be cones up for a while. We will publish detour routes. It'll be signed, and everyone will know what's going on. And we're going to do a real proactive job of pushing out on social media and in connection and stuff like that.
Right. Well, and I think, and some people learned this the hard way in the past couple of weeks during this utility relocation, but avoid the intersection unless you're patronizing the businesses there. If you can find an alternate route, and as you've mentioned, we're going to, through social media and whatnot, give you alternate routes. It's just best to avoid that intersection unless you're going to a business there. Okay, so, and we're going to have graphics over the next few months. It's going to be very plain to see through various sources what that intersection is going to look like in the future, how it's going to improve. So you'll see it, but for the purposes of this interview, just tell us when that intersection is fully built out. Talk about the highlights of what's going to make traffic movement better at K-7 and Eisenhower.
So this intersection improvement project is adding both capacity and efficiency. So from a capacity standpoint, we're actually going to be adding an additional northbound left turn lane from K-7 onto Eisenhower. We're going to be adding what's called a free flow right turn lane in front of Quick Trip. So when you're going southbound on Eisenhower, or southbound on K-7, you'll be able to go west on Eisenhower through a free flow lane. We're also adding lanes to Eisenhower, and we're going to put in protected turn movements. So the intersection will be safer, more efficient, and it will have additional capacity so that we can, I think the biggest additional capacity is going to be in the north-south movement, but we will also have additional capacity in the east-west movement because we'll have the ability to queue in turn lanes on Eisenhower, and we'll have the ability to provide a lot more space for people to move in and out of that intersection. It will be you know, it'll be a challenge while we do it. Anytime we do improvements,
Sure.
it's going to be impactful, but I think the benefits are going to be seen, you know, for many, many years in the future.
Okay, all right. I've been speaking with Lansing Public Works Director Mike Spickelmier. For Movers and Shakers, I'm Ken Miller.